Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Zoo School Live. My name is Laura, and I have a very special guest, little Banshee, with us today. Now, I just wanted to thank T-Mobile for sponsoring this episode and helping us to reach a greater audience with Zoo School Live. Just like other episodes, guys, if you have questions as we go, please put them in the comments. Banshee is very excited to meet you all today. So this little owl came to the zoo at the beginning of August. It hatched out on July 27th and came here at about 10 days old. And we've been hand raising it ever since. So I'm actually going to let him go over on this little perch because we're going to do, or try to do, a little gender reveal. So we're going to see if Banshee wants to help us figure out which gender. Is it a boy or a girl? So I've got a few little play toys we're going to try with him. You guys can get a nice close look at little Banshee there. So Banshee the barn owl, let's see if it wants to kind of help us out. What are you, Banshee? Are you a girl or a little boy? What do you think? It's a big question. Oh, it's a boy. Good job, Banshee. Here you go, buddy. Do you want to play with that? So Banshee is a confirmed boy. We got the news about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which is very exciting for us. Now we've, again, got Banshee at about 10 days old. Now why would we want to bring such a small little owl to the zoo? Well, Banshee is in training to be an ambassador. You guys have met so many of our ambassador animals on Zoo School Live. Many of them help us to teach programs and do educational things here at the zoo and off-site. And what we found throughout the zoo community is that with owls in particular, when they have a chance to be exposed to people and different things like cars and hats and new sounds and different locations at a young age, they succeed a lot better at their job. They're just way more comfortable hanging out with people and helping us to teach. So we made the decision to work with the Philadelphia Zoo, where Banshee's parents live, and we brought him here again at about 10 days old. He only weighed about 85 grams. That is actually less than an apple. So that's really small. And if you guys have been following our Facebook page, you've probably seen the little video that included pictures of his growth. You can see now he's not so tiny anymore. In fact, he's about full size. So Banshee is 10 weeks old, and it only takes around 9 weeks for these little animals to become full size and get ready to leave the nest, which is pretty impressive. So within that time period, they are growing very rapidly. They have to develop all their different feathers. They're learning a lot about their environment. So again, that's why we decided to bring him in and hand rear him with people. So from day one of being here at the zoo, Banshee has been doing car rides. He has traveled back and forth to the zoo. He has met a ton of different people, all of our staff here. He's met some different animals that live at the zoo. He has heard music. He's watched some movies. He has played with all different kinds of toys. We love to give him stuff to rip apart and shred. That's one of his favorite things to do. We've also been introducing him to, sitting on different surfaces. We had to get him used to rocks and tree branches and things because he spent a lot of his time on blankies and in a soft nest type situation for a while. So it's been a huge learning experience for not only Banshee but for us as staff as well. We've had to make sure that he felt safe and comfortable the whole time, but we also continued to expose him to new situations so he wouldn't have as many things later in life that would be scary. And that's been really fun for us educators. We've been learning a lot along the way as well. So ultimately, the goal with Banshee is that he will help us to teach just like other ambassadors, and he is fully flighted. So many of our birds here at the zoo unfortunately have some wing injuries or eye injuries, things like that, that make them unable to be released into the wild. Now Banshee's a little bit different. So he is fully healthy, and again, he's been raised by humans, so he's pretty used to human care. You want to come up on the glove? Can you show everybody how smart you are? All the way up. So we've been introducing him to different situations to help him do things that some of our other birds can't. And he's still learning. But one of the big things we're really excited about trying with him is flying. So we're going to teach him to do some flight demos. Banshee can fly, which is why he has permanently moved outside into his outdoor enclosure. Come on up. All the way up. You can do it. All the way up, buddy. We're still learning how to step up, which is okay. It takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of practice to get there, and that's all right. Good job, buddy. So eventually, after he's learned to step up, he's learned to take rides around on the glove and become comfortable in new situations, we're going to try to do some flight training with him. So we gave him a much bigger space to hang out in most of his time now. He does live outdoors, and he's been practicing a lot. So he has different size perches. He has some logs on the ground so he could jump and get some strength and balance, because that's very important. When a barn owl is young and in the wild, they go through a process called fledging, where they will climb around out of their nesting cavity and usually be really clumsy and kind of fall and get back up and climb up the tree and try again. And so we had to provide Banshee those opportunities as well. Now, a lot of his practices were indoors at first, but he has moved outside so that he can build those muscles, and eventually we'll be doing some flight training with him, which is really exciting for our zoo because many of our birds, unfortunately, aren't able to fly. So Banshee's a new experience for us in that as well. Now, in the wild, barn owls are found across the globe. They're actually one of the most widely distributed owls in the world. And they get the name barn owl because they are cavity nesters. They love to nest inside of rock crevices, tree cavities, and including human-developed spaces like barns and attics and things like that. So they've lived side by side with humans for a long, long time. And actually, that's why we decided on the name Banshee. If you're not familiar, there is Irish and Scottish folklore surrounding a spirit or an entity called the Banshee. And the Banshee is thought to be generally a woman or some kind of spirit that roams the countryside, flies through the night, and produces this terrifying scream. And so if you heard this scream, according to the folklore, you, unfortunately, that was telling you there was something happening, the bad omen. So it could be, you know, your ultimate demise or the death of someone you love. It was a very scary thing. Now, historians believe that some of that legend might have actually stemmed from real live barn owls because, as you can see, Banshee's got a pretty light color on his belly. In fact, many barn owls are even more white than Banshee, and his face is very light colored as well. And at night, when they're flying, they often look like this bright white shape that crosses the sky. And owls fly almost silently, so they don't make a lot of noise, and it wouldn't really be easy to identify them as an owl as they're soaring through the night. So historians think that people saw these owls, and they unfortunately mistook them for a creature, a mythological creature that was soaring around at nighttime. And they also make a terrifying sound. So they are, sorry guys, having some technical difficulties. They sound a little bit like a screaming woman. So when barn owls fly around at night, if they're communicating to one another, they can make this terrifying noise. So that all put together led people to believe that the folklore, the myth, the legend, the scary story of the Banshee was actually people hearing and potentially seeing barn owls fly at night, especially because, again, they live near humans. Not only do we provide them with a lot of places to hide and live, but they also love to eat mice and other rodents. So that allows them to have a good food source if they live near people. So Banshee got his name in that way. Now, thankfully, Banshee doesn't go around screaming too often at nighttime. He does make some different noises. He can make a hissing sound when he's nervous, and he can also make a little bit of a chattering call or a chitter when he's excited. And because he's been living with people pretty much most of his life, he does get excited when he sees people and his keepers. So he does have what we call imprint behavior. So he believes that people are a positive thing. He knows that food comes from us. And in this case, that was on purpose. We wanted him to be comfortable in his job. Now, barn owls provide us a very valuable service. We were very excited to bring a barn owl into our collection because they are often misunderstood, like many birds of prey, and they're very secretive, so they're hard to study. But they are actually one of our best rodent control predators out there. They eat thousands of mice a year, and so they provide us a free service of controlling populations of species that we don't necessarily want around because they can spread disease. So barn owls are #1 pest control, and they don't charge us a thing. They just fly around and do what they do best. He's got a few adaptations to help him to do that. So Banshee, you can see, does have some talons, some sharp claws. And we have just started having to use a little bit more of a thick glove with him. When he was younger, we were able to bare hand have him step up, but not so much anymore. He's getting those sharp claws. And on top of that, he's also got some pretty strong feet. So he can grab and squeeze really tightly. And this is how owls like Banshee are going to catch and kill their food. So he has some great adaptations for catching food, like mice and voles and moles. And then he also, of course, has a sharp hooked beak. So that sharp hooked beak is what he's going to use to rip and tear apart his food. And this will act almost like a fork and knife for him when he's catching and eating things. Now here at the zoo, we do use his food to train him. So he gets a decent amount of food, about 3 mice every day. And we use those little tiny bits of food to reward him. So we want him to associate coming out on the glove, going out on program, meeting new people, all of these things in a positive way. And even though Banshee has had a lot of time to meet new people and get comfortable, because he started off with us at such young an age, we still are going to use food to reward him in general for doing things. So that's why you see me, when he was on the glove, I was offering little tiny tidbits for him to eat. Now we also try to reward him with different types of toys. So as I mentioned earlier, Banshee really likes different papers and things. He really enjoys shredding stuff apart, and he also enjoys pouncing on stuff. So when he was first starting to learn to fly, we would give him little strings and little balls, and he would chase those around the room and pounce on them. So that's how he really started to first develop his wing muscles, his feet muscles. It took him a little bit of time to figure out how to use his feet, which was really funny to watch. Now he's pretty much got it down. He's figured it out. So again, he is about full size. He won't get too much bigger than this. He weighs close to about 560 grams. Now eventually he could be a little bit heavier, but probably not by a whole lot. Barn owls generally don't weigh much more than a pound. So they're not super large owls compared to some of them. They're kind of right in the middle between screech owl and great horned owl. So I want to make sure we have time for questions if you guys have any. So Holly, one of our other educators, is going to read some off to us, and we're going to see if we can answer them.
Evie would like to know if his feathers change color in the summer and winter.
Ooh, that's a great question. So Banshee's feathers will not change color in the summer, in the winter. That's a great question. And I'm wondering if maybe you've seen pictures of barn owls that are much lighter in color. So I mentioned earlier, Banshee is a little bit more dark on his belly than we were expecting. And now his parents at the Philadelphia Zoo are also similar in color. They have a little bit more of that dark tan and that gray compared to some barn owls you see. Even though barn owls, the species, are found throughout the world, they have a lot of variation in their color. So sometimes they're more white on the belly, sometimes they have darker feathers on top. Banshee just happens to be a little bit of a darker tan. We are interested to see if his face lightens up anymore. If you guys have been following his story, he has changed a lot in 10 weeks. And so even every week from now on, it's going to change a little bit more. He, for the most part, has all his grown-up feathers, but you can see a couple little tiny floofs right by his legs. Those are some of his little baby feathers that are still kind of growing out. So other than that, though, his coloration will probably stay about the same. Great question. Thanks, Amy.
Marissa would like to know what his favorite toy was when he was a baby.
Ooh, his favorite toy, I would say, is a piece of string with a little ribbon on it, which inadvertently may have taught him to go after shoelaces, so we're going to have to work on that a little bit. But he really loved to chase this string with a little ribbon on it around on the floor, which was very cute to watch him do that. And that's really good learning for him, because in the wild, naturally he would be hunting for food. Now, he doesn't have to hunt for food here at the zoo, but he still needs those hunting instincts. We want to make sure that he still, despite growing up on people care, we want him to be as natural in his behavior as possible. So that was kind of learning how to be a hunter. That was his first introduction to learning how to be a hunter. Oh, and he's going to do a nice big stretch, show off that wingspan. Barn owls can have a wingspan of 3 to 4 feet, believe it or not. So even though he's a compact little bird, he can spread himself out pretty big.
What do they like to eat in the wild?
Good question. So in the wild, barn owls are going to eat primarily mice and small mammals. So they're going to eat things like mice and voles and moles. They might also eat bugs. So if there's a lot of crickets and cicadas, things like that, they could eat those. They also might eat things like small snakes and frogs. So anything in that range would be considered food for these guys. Any other questions?
Oh, how much can or will he grow?
How much can or will he grow? So he is about full size. He might get a little bit bigger, but not by a whole lot. So again, we got him at about 10 days old. He fit in the palm of my hand. He had barely any feathers. His eyes were closed. And in just the span of basically 9 to 10 weeks, he grew in all of his big bird feathers, and he developed that white face. The really neat thing with barn owls and that white face is that they have very pronounced facial discs. So if you take a look, if he looks forward, you'll see that his face is heart-shaped. And that's because barn owls are basically in a different family from other types of owls. They have way more pronounced facial discs and have some of the best hearing of all owls. So Banshee will use those to search out for food in the wild. So it took a few weeks for those to develop, but otherwise he's not going to change a whole lot from where he is right now.
Amanda wants to know why barn owls nest in attics.
That's a great question, Amanda. So because they are cavity nesters, that means that they prefer to nest in an enclosed or closed off space. So in the wild, without humans around, naturally they would nest in rock crevices or tree cavities, things like that. But because humans have moved in and we've changed the environment a whole lot, barn owls have decided that they can make exceptions and find some suitable replacements, such as our attics and garages and barns and things like that. So they have just learned to adapt and take advantage of a new space that has been human created. Great questions today, guys. If you guys think of anything else, please feel free to put them down in the comments and we'll get back to you guys and answer them later. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with Banshee. He is a joy to hang out with myself, so I loved sharing him with you guys today, and we hope that you'll continue to follow his story. We're going to probably provide some updates once he continues to grow and starts to come out into the zoo for programming. The next steps for him are, again, glove training and learning how to ride on the glove and go out for program, and then eventually for flying. So he's got a lot of work to do behind the scenes before he comes out to meet people. And one of the big challenges we're facing right now is that in order for us to safely free fly Banshee and some of our other birds, we actually need to buy some really special equipment called telemetry equipment. And that's pretty expensive. So if anybody out there is super into Banshee and interested in helping us with our goals in the future of flying him and some of our other birds of prey, feel free to check out our Amazon wish list or reach out to the zoo, because we are looking towards the future to do big programming like that, and we need special telemetry equipment for it. So, without further ado, everybody, have a great rest of your day. I want to thank T-Mobile again for sponsoring this episode. Banshee's going to enjoy a few more snacks and the rest of his breakfast here for doing such a nice job hanging out with us today and visiting with you guys on live. And again, hope you have a great rest of your day. Tune in next Tuesday for our next episode of Zoo School Live. Thanks, guys.